Welcome to Bankless, where today we explore the frontier of perp DEXs. We're here to help you become more bankless. You got Ryan and David on the podcast today. There's been a huge breakout this cycle. One of the themes has been decentralized perps exchanges, led primarily by a application and a blockchain called Hyperliquid. But now some competition has entered the ring, and one in particular is moving up the charts in terms of open interest for perps and volume. It's caught our eye. It's called Lighter. It's now the second largest perps exchange. They're only 2 weeks in to Mainnet, so it's quite a feat. It's getting a lot of traction. The difference here is that Lighter is built on Ethereum. So the question is this Ethereum's Hyperliquid? In this conversation, I think you'll find this is not just a battle of perps exchanges, it's certainly that, but it's also a battle for Ethereum's vision of the world, which is L2s backed by Ethereum grade security versus maybe some other visions of the world, a multi-chain vision of the world where every single app has its own new, fresh layer one. A few things we discuss in this episode: the benefits of an L2. Can L2s really scale? Also, the massive flash crash on October 11th, and what were the causes? Vlad also gives letter grades to all of the major perps exchanges in terms of how they operated. We also discuss the Lighter roadmap and their upcoming token, including how to earn the airdrop, and the future of Lighter and their plans to become a platform chain.
I really enjoyed talking to Vlad and just getting his perspective as like why build a layer 2 perp DEX. We didn't really specifically ask Vlad this question, but I don't think he's doing it because he believes in Ethereum or wants to do the layer 2 model. He's doing it because between ZK and between a layer 2, he can build what he thinks is the fastest, more performant perp DEX. And so it's not a question of ideology. It's a question of just, can he build the most technically performant chain? And so that I thought was pretty refreshing. Before we get into that conversation with Vlad, a moment to talk about some of our friends and sponsors over at IMMUNEFI. Security has been one of crypto's biggest issues. Hacks and exploits have cost the space not only billions of dollars, but billions of dollars worth of PR. So stop getting hacked. Don't get hacked in 2025. IMMUNEFI can help you with that. They are one of the most trusted brands in crypto security, with $180 billion in value protected and over $25 billion in hack damage prevented across over 650 of the top protocols. And now they have a security operating system, the first ever security operating system for the on-chain economy. It's a little command and conquer station, a little battle station to help you protect your crypto protocol. So if you have a crypto protocol with deposits in it, you need protection. Don't accept customer deposits without protection. You can get that protection at immunefi.com. You can also follow them at X at IMMUNEFI. There's a link in the show notes to learn more. Let's go ahead and get right into the conversation with Vlad from Lighter. Bankless Nation, we are here with Vlad Novakovski, the founder and CEO of Lighter, a newly launched ZK L2 Perp DEX on Ethereum, a ZK L2 Perp DEX. That's fun to say, which recently crossed $1 billion of TVL deposited, all in USDC. Vlad, welcome to Bankless.
Thanks, David. Thanks, Ryan. Good to be here.
I want to read out a tweet to get us started here because I enjoyed this tweet. Ryan enjoyed this tweet. This is a tweet from you. You said, being a layer 1 is a bug, not a feature. A layer 1 is just an Ethereum layer 2 without any of the security and verifiability parts. So Vlad, why did you build Lighter as a ZK layer 2?
Well, I think that one, obviously it was a little bit tongue in cheek, but there are some very good L1s as well, like Bitcoin is an obvious example, but I guess my point was that right when we were making this architectural choice, the hard part was inheriting the security layer of Ethereum while still having really good performance. And if you don't do that, then the way you can achieve security and verifiability is it's a much harder problem to kind of rebuild all of the functionality that Ethereum already has. So it's like because a lot of people would say things like, oh, well, like after we built Lighter, it's one thing in the beginning, maybe we could have made a different choice and we were very happy with the choice we made, right? But after we'd done all the hard work and made it work as an L2, some people were saying, oh, well Lighter will be an L1. And it's like, yeah, all we have to do is just remove all the hard work we did and call it an L1. So it's like having the good performance and the verifiability and the security, that was always our goal, and we think we are, well on our way to achieving it with the structure we have.
Can you get into that, Vlad? So we'll talk about performance maybe later, but the things that you get as an Ethereum layer 2, the security piece, the verifiability piece. What do you get by virtue of being an Ethereum layer 2?
Right. So the security piece is ensured through something called an escape hatch that we have. And, if you look at our white paper, it explains that in kind of technical detail, but also if you go to L2 Beat, we're one of the L2s that has that. But basically what the escape hatch means is that if the L2 messes up or does stuff that is outside of the rules, or if it gets hacked, or, or let's say our own team somehow gets corrupted, or whatever happens, if that happens, then, within a certain time frame, if it's not fixed, customers can get their assets back through Ethereum. And so that's kind of, a very strong way both to disincentivize bad actors, but also to ensure, security. And so then, and which clearly you don't have if you're building your own L1, if that L1 is facing a problem, like that's it. I mean, it's kind of lights out. Whereas here, obviously we don't want that scenario to happen, but A, it's like strongly disincentivized, and B, if it did happen, customers can still get their assets back.
So like, just so it's clear, what happens if maybe we'll not say Binance, but say something like a Hyperliquid. Let's say Hyperliquid goes offline or becomes, God forbid, corrupt or gets censored by some government, which, could happen. What happens in that case versus what happens in the lighter L2 case?
Right. And I mean, I think we certainly, our team is, we've always been friendly with, Jeff and his team. So we certainly consider them good actors. But I guess in the scenario where something like that happened, they would probably do their best to compensate users, but it wouldn't be through smart contracts though, right? It would be something like kind of outside of that, right? So if that were to happen or with any like other L1, right? Like if there was corrupt or hacked, or just like I don't know, if they had an outage and never recovered, like you wouldn't be able to get your funds back through smart contracts. Like hopefully those projects, and then we think Hyperliquid is, they're certainly good actors. I mean, they would try their best to compensate users in some other way, but it wouldn't be done programmatically. Whereas with our architecture, you can actually, like the escape hatch, like all those assets, no one can move money in or out between the L2 and Ethereum until the L2 can prove that what it's doing is correct and fair. And if it can't prove that, then within a certain amount of time, users can just get their assets out programmatically through the escape hatch.
Of course, this all presumes Ethereum stays up, but
yes.
It has a fantastic track record of that, has a fantastic track record of security as well. Just the other piece here, verifiability. So I feel like we've talked a little bit about security, but there's a different concept here where you say, verifiability of being an Ethereum L2 is important there. What does that mean?
If I think about exchanges and what do customers need as far as guarantees, like kind of the hierarchy of needs there, right? I think like at the top is like, your money isn't stolen, right? Which certainly we've seen that, FTX and other cases that can happen. And certainly would not happen with, I think, decentralized exchanges. Obviously, modular the point about the L1 or the L2 being secure, but certainly the design of the exchange makes sure that funds are safe and self-custody, right? So that's the first thing. The second thing you want is that the trades you think happened are the trades that happened. So it's like kind of, that there's, because that's not true for centralized exchanges, right? Like centralized exchanges, if you think you bought and the exchange thinks you sold, like it's like kind of, your word versus their word, there's not really a way to prove which is correct, right? Now, that one, the reason I point that out is just to give credit to other projects like DYDX V3, like they had that, right? They proved that using kind of Starkware technology. What no one had done in the Ethereum ecosystem is the third hierarchy of needs, which is like when you send an order, it gets matched correctly. That if you're an active trader, that's actually very important. Like it sounds like it's like academic, but it's actually very important because if that's not the case, especially during a high volatility environment like the last few days, like, you know, if you're sending an order to buy at, you know, 4,200 and somebody else is buying at 4,300, you know, or somebody else sends an order to buy at 4,100, what if that 4,100 actually gets matched before, you know, somebody who's willing to pay 4,200? You know, you can do a lot of things. If the matching is off chain and not verifiable, like, a lot of wealth can be transferred unfairly if that happens, right? So it's very important for the matching to respect like time, price, priority, and kind of all the rules that our circuits have. But also, not only matching, liquidations have to be verifiable, right? Because again, liquidations, it's like, well, who's to say, you know, if the price falls from 4,200 to 4,000 and get liquidated, well, but maybe somebody else had the same exact position, they didn't get liquidated. Like, all of those things also have to happen fairly. So anyway, both of those things are ensured by the ZK circuits. But again, the L2 is only as good as the L1 it's on top of, right? Like, you can verify all that stuff, but then if, like, let's say those proofs just stay on our L2, well then, like, the whole thing can, like, as we talked about, like, the whole thing can just go rogue. And then, like, yeah, like, you can complain all you want about those proofs being wrong, but like, there's not much you can do. Whereas here, the only way that assets can move back and forth between the lighter L2 and Ethereum is if Ethereum knows that the proofs are right. And that's kind of the key part here about the verifiability.
What do you say, Vlad, about fair order matching, order execution?
Right.
Are these like theoretical concerns, or are there examples in Perp DEX history, in the Perp DEX landscape, of actually corrupted or unfair or untransparent order matching that has created just a bad environment for traders?
Right. Well, certainly with MEV, that stuff happens all the time. I mean, I guess it depends on whether you look at kind of the order book model or the AMM model. I mean, I think with MEV, it actually happens kind of out on the open. It's not even a secret that stuff like that happens. I think with other order books, yeah, it's a good question. I don't know if there have been any like demonstrable, because the thing is that you wouldn't know it, right? Like, if something like this happened, the only way you would know about it is if someone involved in that scheme, you know, if there was like a whistleblower or something, or like if it is off chain and there's no verifiability, and there is, well, I think we know that sometimes like other projects in the past have had like special deals with market makers. We know that, but how far those deals went and how much did they hurt retail, I don't know if there's like evidence of that's been out in the open, but that doesn't mean it doesn't happen, right? Because if it, like,
but it
we
is
know
a vector.
we know in
It's a
TradFi,
theoretical vector.
Yeah, I mean, we know, well, it probably does happen, right? It's just like, again, if it's not provable, you can't really, like, if it happens, there's no way you would even know about it, right? The only way someone would know that happened in the past if someone involved in that scheme kind of spoke out.
Right.
But we know that customers complain a lot about, like, why, you know, with kind of, right, like even on centralized exchanges, like, why did I get filled here, but this other trader didn't, you know, like, anecdotally, you know, it kind of comes up a lot. But, and we know in TradFi, for example, like the flash crash of 2010, like a lot of, like, there's a lot of really weird price action. And to this day, like, I think Congress did an investigation like 5 years later and they still couldn't figure out what happened. So this stuff is like very important. And if you don't have it, then, like, the whole point of, again, this hierarchy of needs, it's like, you know, money not being lost. The trades you think happened are the trades that happened, and then everything that you did is verifiable. That's kind of why you want to use blockchain for this in the first place, right? If you don't care about those things, then, you know, like, you can just trade in TradFi.
There's a bunch more technical architecture conversations that we want to get into, like the ZK stuff, more about the capacity, the throughput of being a layer 2. But we'd be remiss if we didn't also talk about the recent market volatility. Just for context, for listeners who are less familiar with Lighter launched a public mainnet on October 1st. And Lighter, the Perp DEX, has been around for months. People have been trading on like the beta version of Lighter for months, but the public mainnet happened on October 1st. 10 days into mainnet, one of the largest and most chaotic liquidation events across crypto occurred, with $19 billion of liquidations happening inside just a few hours. Now, Vlad, when you build a Perp DEX, I think you know that this day comes eventually. I don't think you were ready for it to come 10 days into the public mainnet. So a pretty fast trial by fire there. Put us into your shoes during that time. When did it turn into an all hands on deck moment? Like how much of a crisis was it? Kind of walk us through what it was like to be Vlad in that moment.
You know, I guess like one thing to point out, and we wrote a postmortem about, you know, there was an outage that happened, right? But the outage actually happened 5 hours after the high volatility period, right? So actually during the specific you know, timeline you're talking about, where markets got really crazy for about 4 to 5 hours, actually the system handled that correctly, right? There was no problem there. In fact, I think LLP also maintained liquidity. You know, a lot of traders who would have been wiped out on other platforms didn't get wiped out. So actually the system worked fine during that time. Then after that, kind of the database gave out, and it's more of really like kind of like a bit of like the issue I think was kind of bad timing in the sense that we launched public, you know, we went from private beta to public mainnet. Like we upgraded some things to prepare for the higher, you know, kind of higher throughput, you know, more customers, and part of that was kind of upgrading the database. We were planning to do that on Sunday morning, on the 12th, just as like a scheduled maintenance, right, and like upgrade the database. And you know, we picked Sunday morning as the time that would bring the least disruption to the users, to the traders. And so the plan was to like do that database upgrade, you know, take the system down for 10 to 15 minutes. But you know, the fact that, you know, that there was this huge volatility like Friday night obviously was not planned. Like, no, had we known that, we would have just done the upgrade like Thursday morning. I mean, they wouldn't have been happy, because the reality is that users, you know, they don't like it if there's a 2-minute outage. Like, so it's like kind of like the perfect being the enemy of the good. We're like, okay, let's like time this upgrade exactly when there's the least activity. And then like a day and a half before that, we had the most active trading day of the last 10 years. And so, and again, it actually, the database didn't die during that spike, but like 5 hours after that, it finally gave out. And we had to like, and upgrading it when it's unhealthy is different than upgrading it when it is healthy. So that's actually why it took like 4 hours to do that, 4 hours to fix the current thing. And then we upgraded on Sunday as we planned to do. So now we're kind of, the system has the infrastructure that it needs to have to kind of survive another event like this, and with some buffer as well. But yeah, I mean, I hopefully that gives you a little bit of the timeline, because it's not, you know, it's like a couple of things happened, like us getting a lot more users happened a week before, and then we were already planning to upgrade the database, and then this like volatility happened a few hours before it finally gave out. So, you know, I think just want to make sure clear about the timeline, because people I think have conflated some of the stuff.
How long was that outage, Vlad?
It was 4 hours.
4 hours, okay. And this was somewhat after. So I'm curious, because
it was like hour 5 through hour 9 after it's like the high volatility was like the first 5 hours, right? And then it actually survived, then finally gave out. And so like, that's why we were going to compensate, you know, people affected during that 4 hour block, but those, you know, it'll be pretty manageable, right? Like if it had happened during the previous 5 hours, that would have been a much more complicated process to compensate.
Right. Okay, so Lighter did have an outage, but it was 5 hours after, and you've talked about why. So yeah, I feel like all eyes in crypto were on these perp dexes and perpetuals exchanges, centralized or not. So sort of the three that got the limelight. One was Binance, of course. There's a lot of mayhem going on there. Just Binance, the exchange, and then also, you know, the perp side of things. The other was Hyperliquid, of course, which did stay up the entire time, but had this auto deleveraging type of event that you know, some traders kind of raised an eyebrow at. And the third, actually, given your volume and given the significance of size, was Lighter. And so maybe I want you to give kind of a letter grade to these exchanges, and like, or these perps, like how did they perform during the time when they're most supposed to perform, which is incredibly high volatility positions. So maybe start with your own letter grade for Lighter. Like what would you give yourself? And then we'll go to Binance and Hyperliquid.
I'm probably not the right person to roll up those grades into a single score. I mean, the customers can do the, it's up to kind of do their own homework on that. But I can at least provide some input here. I think whereas like if you look at the categories of reliability, liquidity, and communication, maybe if you break it up that way, I would say speaking about us, like clearly the reliability, we did have an outage. It didn't happen during the worst period, but it happened. So I would say on reliability, it's like, again, just talking about October 10th, right? Not the entire,
of course.
I would say on the reliability part, it was something like between a C and a D, or let's just say D to be, F would have been if the outage happened during the worst period, right? But let's say like, D plus, C minus, something like that, right? I think on the liquidity part, we actually did great. I would say like, B plus. The only thing that went wrong with the liquidity is that some of the market makers kind of left, and it was really entirely up to LLP to provide liquidity. And so the market makers, to be fair
LLP
to them,
is sort of the insurance policy. That's the pool of last resort in the lighter system.
Yeah,
is
so
that
the
right?
LLP is the public pool that is kind of the market maker that's run by the protocol. Anyone in the community can buy into it, and it takes it's like it's always there. It makes markets. It does process liquidations as well. If liquidations happen, it kind of takes over positions. And by the way, LLP does have ADL as well. It's just that the ADL policies are less aggressive. So
interesting.
It's not like ADLs didn't happen for any market at any time. It's just that we tried to provide as much liquidity as possible before getting to that point.
And the
for the most part,
ADL,
succeeded.
for people who aren't familiar with these perps terms, that's automated deleveraging. That did not happen on your platform. That did happen on Hyperliquid.
Well,
so
I wouldn't say it didn't happen on our. It happened on our. Like ADL isn't just something like it either. It's not like black or white. It's like in some smaller markets and in some for particular blocks of time, it did happen, but small, right?
Okay.
Like it affected maybe customers to the tune of tens of thousands of dollars versus like on some of the other platforms, the ADLs affected customers to the tune of tens of millions of dollars.
Can you define that more? Why is ADL in place in these perps exchanges?
Like, why is it there at all?
Yeah, why is it there? What does it do? And how did it kick in a crisis?
I mean, at some point, right? Like, let's say that you and I are trading a market, and like I'm long 50x and you're short 50x, and let's say the market is trading at 100, and some catastrophic thing happens and the market goes all the way to zero. Like in like before anyone has a chance to do anything, well, like what would happen in TradFi, right? Is like you would actually like maybe you could potentially go after the person, like claw back other assets, but in DeFi you can't. Like all I have is the deposit I made in the wallet, right? You can't like get other funds from me or from you. So like let's say that something like that happens. Well, basically like kind of the total amount of like money in the system is now less than what would, right? Like your P&L now, let's say if that happened in this case, like I put in $20, you put in $20, but now your P&L is 200. Well, like I only have that $20 to give. So like you're not going to make the 200 you think you're making. Like, so now I'm not going to make money either, of course, but like I'll be wiped out. But like the whole system has to deleverage until like the total amount of money in the system is like equal to the total amount that would be owed to all the different parts. And then the insurance fund can contribute to that, but it not doesn't have like that. The insurance fund is not big enough to like make everyone whole relative to what they're supposed to have. But the point is to avoid that, though, you can kind of like do partial liquidations along the way, or you can just provide more liquidity so others can trade kind of in and out. So the ADL is like the last resort thing that happens, but the reason it's needed is because of this example, right? Like ultimately, if the moves are strong enough and there's just not enough of a backstop, like you have to, because the total amount of money, you can't like call a bank or like write a letter to a lawyer and like get other money into the system, like in DeFi, right? Like the amount that's been deposited to the exchange is the total amount of assets that's there, and that's not gonna, like you have to make do with that, and so that's why the ADL is necessary.
Right, inherent to any leverage platform with margin, right? And generally speaking, longs and shorts moderately balance out. And if price doesn't move that much in any direction, that's just okay. We're operating in the happy case. But if price moves violently and there's any discrepancy between a long and a short, then all of a sudden that gap can become more money than was ever deposited into the platform in the first place.
Right.
And so you need to make sure that that doesn't leave some people hosed and others people not hosed. And so an ADL is like a equitable mechanism, equality mechanism.
Yes. And all of these platforms have some version of it. I think, you know, like, I think some of the discussions online have been like, for people who've never seen it before, it's more like, wait, how does it, like, this thing doesn't.
Yeah, they're learning about perps for the first time.
Yeah. But like I think
not
I
us,
think
though. Not me.
Yeah, not you guys, right? But like, I think some of the discussion, like, because there's been like, I think this turned into there's been a lot of like bad blood online as a result. And like, I think the differences between the different exchanges on this are like pretty nuanced, right? Like, if you look at even our, you know, like if you go to our documentation and you read how the ADL works, it's like, you know, it's pretty, there's a lot of math in there, right? Like the differences between that and, you know, Hyperliquid or Binance ADL is like pretty nuanced. Now, those nuances do matter, and we can talk about that. But yeah, but the nuance, it's not like some have ADL and some don't. Like, it's not, yeah.
But let's get back to the letter grade. So reliability, we got your letter grade for lighter. How about liquidity then? How'd you do?
Yeah, so liquidity, I would say, right, like kind of like B+, right?
B+, okay.
And the only reason I say not A is because like LLP, I think, did great with liquidity provision. Like, I think the other market makers, and I don't, you know, certainly don't want to throw them under the bus or anything, but like, I think, you know, they kind of all left, right? And I think they left not just us, but like other exchanges too.
Yeah.
I think like
they were very busy, freaking out at the time.
Yeah.
How about comms? How'd you do on
comms,
that?
I would say we've done, you know, again, not to, you know, be self-serving. I mean, I would say like A-. You know, I think we updated our users pretty quickly, and, you know, our customer support team was in touch right away. We had a form for folks affected, like we immediately announced. Compensation, that compensation will be given. We did a postmortem on the technical outage, and now we're also going to do a write-up on what happened with LLP, which, even though it did what it was supposed to do, like, a lot of people didn't know that that's what it was supposed to do, right? So I think it's definitely worth a comms piece on that as well. But I would say, again, biased, but I would say like A- on the comms part.
Okay, same for Hyperliquid. How'd they do? Reliability, liquidity, comms.
Right. I mean, I think on reliability, I would say like, yeah, like maybe like B+ in the sense that like you don't know outage, but there's definitely performance degradation and different, you know, like, I think certainly the high throughput and high volume was felt by the end user, and but overall pretty good, I would say, like, yeah, something like a B+.
Okay, liquidity.
But on liquidity was the problem, right? Like, a lot of people got liquidated who weren't expecting to, and you know, I would say that one, you know, is like, you know, like maybe at a D there.
That was because you think their ADL, you know, mechanism was too aggressive, you said?
Yes. I mean, we're not experts in how their EDL works, but just from talking to customers who trade on both, that's the, you know, that's what we've heard. And also, if you just look at the numbers, right, like the 40 million that HLP made, like that 40 million didn't come out of thin air, right? Like that, a lot of, you know, people lost a lot of money. Now, some were just on the wrong side and would have lost money anywhere. But like, I think that, you know, again, I think others, I'm sure, will parse the on-chain data and kind of figure this out in more detail. But just anecdotally from talking to folks, like, the liquidity really dried up quickly, and they had a hard time getting in and out of positions.
And it's the traders really that are losing here. It's kind of that user class.
The traders, yes, as opposed to who, I guess.
I guess that, you know, LPs or something, or
right.
the platform itself.
Yeah. I mean, the LPs are, I mean, it's a zero sum, right? It's like, I mean, ultimately the traders it has to be a good experience for the trader, right? I mean, all this other stuff, like having liquidity pools and having, you know, like having points and airdrops and all this other, I mean, that's all good and well, right? But like, it has to be a good trading experience for the trader. Like, if that's not there, then like all this other stuff is just smoke and mirrors.
Introducing FRAXUSD, the genius-aligned digital dollar from Frax. It's secure, stable, and fully backed by institutional-grade real-world assets, custodied by BlackRock, Superstate, and Fidelity. It's always redeemable one-to-one, transparently audited, and built for payments, DeFi, and banking. The best of all worlds. At the core is FRAXNET, an on-chain fintech platform built to align with emerging US regulatory frameworks where you can mint, redeem, and use FRAXUSD with just a few clicks. Deposit USDC, send a bank wire, or tokenize treasuries, and receive programmable digital dollars straight to your wallet. FRAXNET users benefits from the underlying return of US treasuries and earn just by using the system. Whether you're bridging, minting, or holding, your FRAXUSD works for you. Frax isn't just a protocol, it's a digital nation, powered by the Frax token and governed by its global communities. Join that community and help shape Frax Nation's future by going to frax.com/r/bankless. Frax, designed for the future of compliant digital finance. Ethereum's layer 2 universe is exploding with choices. But if you're looking for the best place to park and move your tokens, make your next stop UNICHAIN. First, liquidity. UNICHAIN hosts the most liquid Uniswap v4 deployment on any layer 2, giving you deeper pools for flagship pairs like ETH USDC. More liquidity means better prices, less slippage, and smoother swaps. Exactly what traders crave. The numbers back it up. UNICHAIN leads all layer 2s in total value locked for Uniswap v4. And it's not just deep, it's fast and fully transparent, purpose-built to be the home base for DeFi and cross-chain liquidity. When it comes to costs, UNICHAIN is a no-brainer. Transaction fees come in about 95% cheaper than Ethereum mainnet, slashing the price of creating or accessing liquidity. Want to stay in the loop on UNICHAIN? Visit unichain.org or follow @UNICHAIN on X for all the updates. Imagine a world where traditional finance meets the power of blockchain seamlessly. That's what MANTLE is pioneering with blockchain for banking, a revolutionary new category at the intersection of TradFi and Web3. At the heart is UR, the world's first money app built fully on-chain. It gives you a Swiss IBAN account, blending fiat currencies like the euro, the Swiss franc, the United States dollar, or the renminbi with crypto, all in one place. Enjoy real-world usability and blockchain's trust and programmability. Transactions post directly to the blockchain, compatible with TradFi rails, and packed with integrated DeFi features. UR transforms Mantle Network into the ultimate platform for on-chain financial services, unifying payments, trading, and assets like the MI4, the METH protocol, and functions FBTC. Backed by developer grants, ecosystem incentives, and top distribution through the UR app, reward stations, and Bybit launch pool. For MNT holders, every economic activity in UR drives value back to you, embodying the entire stack and future growth of this super app ecosystem. Follow Mantle on X @Mantle_official for the latest updates on blockchain for banking. That's x.com/Mantle_official. There's a conversation going on that when I said Ryan and I are not, we're generally less informed about the perp DEX landscape than the average trader, for example. So we're kind of like learning about these things in real time. There's a conversation going around on Twitter about the opinionated nature of the ADL system, because every single perp platform has to have an opinion on who gets demargined or deleveraged first. Right. There's a queue of sorts, and I don't know to what degree that this is real, other than this one tweet thread analysis, which seems pretty good. But it was talking about how Hyperliquid LPs made money, where lighter LPs lost money, lost a little bit of money. And what the interpretation of that means is that, lighter preferred traders over their LPs, and Hyperliquid preferred their LPs over their traders, meaning because of the opinionated nature of the respective platforms' ADL system, ADL design. Right. Lighter just allowed traders to retain more capital than their LPs, and Hyperliquid was the inverse of that. Right. To what degree do you think that is an accurate statement? Is that reflected in what you just said, where you said you have to build a platform for traders first? Talk about that, the nature here.
Yeah, so it's like, if you think about it, let's say you're running a casino, right? Like your Caesars, and people come in and play blackjack. Maybe somebody goes on a great run, and now they're up a lot. Now, does the casino have other, maybe they're, I don't know, maybe you have a credit line from, BlackRock or something, right? Or Goldman Sachs, or maybe, they have shareholders, and they have all these other constituencies too. And yeah, you want to treat everyone fairly, and, certainly the goal isn't to screw over all these other constituencies, but at the end of the day, the customer has to come first, right? Like if you're running a casino, somebody comes in and they hit blackjack, and it's the whole point of that is you get 3-2 when you hit blackjack, right? And the casino's like, wait, actually, we're not going to give you 3-2. We'll just give you your money back. That really violates the kind of trust with the customer, right? I think you kind of want to avoid that at all costs. It's better, like, whereas if, the casino has to like take out a loan at a higher rate for whatever, with their creditors, whatever, that's like, it's better to do that than have to then like violate the kind of the understanding with the customer. So that's kind of how we think about it, right? Like the customer has to come first. And then, you treat all the other constituents fairly as well. Like LLP holders, like, they had 15 up days in a row before the down day. And LLP as a whole is up, 220% year to date. So like, obviously we're not, it's not like there was an intentional choice to, like, for this stuff all works programmatically. Going back to the point about verifiability, right? This stuff it's all encoded in the ZK circuits. It all works programmatically. And we made some design choices in the beginning that work this way that kind of favor the trader, and those are all in the code. And so like, it's not like we pushed a button and said, let's make this trade-off in real time. This all kind of worked the way it was supposed to work. But the reason we feel good about the trade-off is, like, you have to put the customer first.
Let's finish up that report card real quick. So comms for Hyperliquid.
I mean, I think in general, Hyperliquid is very good at comms. I think in this case, I would say that, not the best though, because, I wrote something around like, going back to the casino analogy, is like they were kind of saying, well, we're sad people are going after us. But I mean, I think a lot of the questions that were raised were fair questions, and it's like, they did very well, both in terms of fees and the HLP. So it's almost like, there's this saying like no crying in the casino. There, it's almost like no crying in the casino owner's box. Like they, I don't know what there's to be sad about for them, right? Like but if they want to revise their leverage policies, they can, or if they think what they have is fair, they can keep it going. Like, as long as it's transparent and everyone knows the rules of the game they're playing, I think it's fine. So I would say comms there, like maybe like B-, whereas usually their comms are in an A.
Okay. All right. How about Binance? What'd you give them on those scores?
I don't follow Binance too closely, but just from all I know is just what I hear from, like, I don't trade on Binance anymore, right? I used to before, I guess before perp dexes were good enough to so I don't know firsthand, but just from what we hear from our customers who are also on Binance, like, I think on the liquidity side, it was also not great, which is surprising, right? But because you would think they have like tons of market makers and everything, but I think maybe like a C on the liquidity side. Yeah, I think performance. Some centralized exchanges had some outages as well. I actually don't know if Binance was one of them. I think so. I don't want to speak out of turn. I think some centralized exchanges had outages though. Binance maybe just had degraded performance, or, But I think there were some issues with like withdrawals. But I would say like not an A there, but I don't know, somewhere between a B and a C. I just don't know. But I think on the comms side, from what we've seen, again, secondhand, but like it seems like there was a lot of stuff about like the price of their token and all. Like that's probably not the right time to talk about that.
Right.
Zooming out, Vlad, what have we learned? What have you learned, and what maybe has the industry learned as a result of this cascading liquidation event, like the microstructure that just builds around crypto? Anything novel to take away?
Like the details matter, right? Like like small differences in the math. Like I think most people, when they see these ADL formulas, like, and I think we're guilty of this as well, right? In the sense of, like we stated what the formulas are, and when we designed them, we favored the traders, but like it doesn't say that in the docs necessarily, right? Like here, the reason we made these trade-offs and not those trade-offs, and it's like it was more just like, here's the formula, and we prove that that's what happens, and that's, I mean, it's correct, but like I think a lot of the stuff is like some of these really kind of technical, like super technical things, right? Like are kind of in the back of a documentation, with like 100-page document of how the exchange works, as opposed to really being like front and center, and everyone needs to know. Because I think it's like this only comes up during like the crisis environment, and then everyone forgets. and then next time it's almost like the financial crisis, right? Like the credit crisis. It's like as soon as people recover, everyone forgot about what led to the crisis. So I guess the learning here is like details, like keep them in the forefront. Like I think whether we're certainly going to review our the way that our mechanism works. Like we were already in the process of doing that, right? Because one of the complaints we had before was our liquidation fees are too high. Now, people see why that makes sense, because the fees are high where like maybe during a big market move you pay a little bit more in liquidation fee than you might somewhere else, but during a really big move the LLP is there to protect you. But again, being more clear about that trade-off, and like I think certainly there's a lot to be said about the verifiability piece too, right? Like I think in a perfect world these systems should be audited, they should be verifiable. Like I like teams like Chaos Labs, for example, that's kind of what they do, right? They're like ideally it should be audited by like a third party, like a Chaos Labs, or other teams like Gauntlet, right? Like it shouldn't just be like the protocol design something and like publish some formulas in the back of a 100-page doc, and that's that. So I think there are those learnings like that. I'm still trying to process everything, and maybe work with other folks in the space for kind of more holistic solutions. But I think the solutions, it's about transparency, it's about like verifiability, but also about like decentralization in the sense that like I don't think these decisions should just be made by like an engineer working on this thing who's like running a lot of math and they made a decision and that's that. Even if it was the right decision, like there should be more transparency, more collaboration.
I mean, you've watched crypto markets for a while. This was we've seen things like this before. Maybe 2021, it was a kind of a big leverage sell-off then.
Right.
But this maybe seems similar. But this was also an order of magnitude larger. Do you have any theories for like what caused this? Like, I mean, people are talking about like, oh, is this a coordinated attack? There's a few pairs that they saw some liquidity on. Of course, this was timed with the Trump kind of tariff scare. Is it just generally crypto has just so much leverage? This type of thing is bound to happen every so often. What's your theory of the case?
Well, I guess before answering that, I want to come back. This is related, but I want to come back to your like one of your first points, which is like, this happened right after we launched public mainnet, which is true. But we have been running in private beta for 8 months before, and actually there were some like in February there was a tariff thing too, right? And then I think like April 2nd there was as well. There's some not as big as this, but there's some pretty volatile moves. And then there's some volatile moves on the upside, right? When like people like like Tom Lee and others started like buying ETH, there's some pretty scary looking charts this year in general. And for example, like our system, like we had that outage 5 hours after this one, but like all those other ones we handled without issue. But so I guess I don't want to over index on this particular crash. Like there have been kind of lots of them this year, and I think what caused this one, I have we spent the last 72 hours kind of just getting our own house in order. Like we haven't really been looking at like we're just looking at our own data with our own trading, making sure everything worked correctly, making sure customers who need to be made whole are going to be made whole. Like we've really been focusing on that. So root causes, can't say too much, but I've been in the markets for a long time. Like I think the Napoleon quote does apply. Like never mistake for malice that which can be explained by incompetence. Like I think a lot of times in the markets it is like that. Like it's like even like the flash crash of 2010. It was like I think the most kind of widely accepted explanation is more just kind of some like fat finger trades. And I think it could have been something like that here where, was it a coordinated attack? I haven't seen any evidence of that. But again, we've been pretty busy just keeping our own house in order to do like a full, a full diagnosis of that.
So this is a very interesting way to get mainnet up and running and just get a lot of stress under the system. But Vlad, I kind of just want to zoom out and learn a little bit more about you and Lighter. Yep. Where'd you come from? And also, what made you decide to just build a perps DEX? Like, what's your background? and what was the motivation?
If you zoom all the way out, like, and first of all, like we have a really talented team, and so I really, kind of I will talk about my background, but I want to make sure it's not like I'm building all this stuff solo by any means, right? So, but just my background, I guess I'm not like a crypto guy that discovered finance. I'm more like a finance guy that went into tech, discovered AI, and then discovered crypto, and then built something in DeFi. It's kind of like the arc, right? But so I started out. I did a lot of STEM stuff growing up. Like I was on the U.S. team for the IOI and the IPHO, and did a bunch of math stuff too, and economics at Harvard, and then so then actually was at Citadel, and like when Citadel first started looking at high frequency trading, and then did that at another firm as well. So kind of in total for 8 years doing high frequency trading and TradFi through so these crisis environments, as I mentioned, like crash of 2008, Madoff, flash crash of 2010. I was there when all that stuff happened, right? And then in 2012, I kind of shifted gears and came out to Silicon Valley and worked at a couple of startups, mostly in AI and fintech. That's also when I first read the Bitcoin paper, got really excited about that. Wasn't sure kind of what there was to do that was actionable though, because from a trading perspective, it was very small. Like a friend and I built a bot in 2013 to try to trade Bitcoin. I was like, we calculated that even if our bot got every price move exactly right and traded at 10% of the market volume, we would only be making like 10,000 a month, like just enough to pay our, like our living expenses. Was like, okay, whereas like, we kind of put that aside, right? And this is when Bitcoin was trading at like 30 or something, right? But anyway, so put that aside. Then later on, like another friend showed me more around like Ethereum and EVMs, and that was really interesting. And then the thing that really got me excited was zero knowledge proofs, though. And so 2017, 2018, like reading a lot of that literature, thinking about what that means for scaling. But when my co-founder Scott and I started a company, though, we considered a bunch of crypto ideas, but in the end went with an AI idea, which we built called Lunch Club AI, which was like an AI that essentially like connects people. So it's like, hey, Vlad, you're into DeFi and markets. David, you're also into that stuff. You guys should talk, right? That's kind of how Lunch Club AI works. It actually still exists.
A dating app for friends.
Yes, based on kind of professional interests overlap and kind of mutually. There's a lot of data went into it. So anyway, we built that and did really well during the pandemic. It's one of these startup ideas that like, because some ideas it's just like obvious it's not going to work, and others work right away. But this one, like, it worked pretty well, but then kind of plateaued after the pandemic. And so then we came back around, and a bunch of our team, me, our engineers, like a bunch of folks were like doing crypto stuff on the side anyway, whether it's trading or reading ZK research or, doing, going to Ethereum hackathons, this and that. And like, okay, like let's really build something here. And anyway, going back to why lighter, well, we looked at, to me, like, okay, like there are all these digital assets and I used to trade, right? And it's like, where would we trade them? Well, it's kind of weird. Like, why is 99% of the volume of digital assets traded on exchanges that don't actually use the blockchain to trade digital assets? So it's like, that doesn't really make a lot of sense, because many, not all, but many of these assets, their whole point is to build blockchains for, stuff like finance. So, but then when they're traded, you actually use those rails. You just use like centralized stuff, which is like less transparent than TradFi. And so we kind of had that high level idea. And then back then, when we looked at it, like the closest thing that existed to what we thought should exist was DYDX v3, as I think I mentioned earlier, and that they got a lot of things right, but the actual matching and the liquidations were still off chain and not verified. So that's where, okay, like we think we can solve that problem. And we worked on it for 18 months, launched the testnet last September, and launched the private beta January 19th of this year, and then now we're in public mainnet.
So why a perp DEX though? Because you could have built, Uniswap is a DEX. Uniswap does the job of kind of what you are talking about. Why do you care? Why do you care about efficient, a perp DEX?
Right? It's not efficient. Like I think that the AMM structure was needed at the time before Ethereum L2s existed and before ZK was really ready for prime time. Like if you just want to trade like directly on the Ethereum on L1, like the only way you could do it is through an AMM structure. That's true. But AMMs have other problems, right? Like MEV, there is just slow, right? Like if you're waiting 10 seconds to trade, like that's not a good consumer experience. So I mean, and candidly, right, that's why a lot of the volume was centralized, right? Like it's not that all these people are like, oh, like I'm really excited about Bitcoin and Ethereum and Solana, but I want to trade all that stuff in a centralized way. Like that's not, it's more just because you couldn't trade it in an efficient way using its own tech yet. So like, I think, because the cynical view is like, oh, people just want to gamble on this stuff. But I mean, people can gamble on a lot of things. You can gamble on, go to the casino, you can bet on horses, right? You can bet on sports, you can, whatever. I mean, people who trade digital assets, I think by and large do believe in decentralization. So it's like why aren't they using platforms that use decentralization? I think they were just not efficient enough to work for most forms of trading, right? So yeah. So anyway, so now why like perps specifically, and not like why didn't we build like a spot version? We actually did build one along the way, and the problem was that the ZK part of our stack wasn't ready yet, for one thing, and secondly, we just saw like spot is really good if it lives side by side with perps, but spot on its own, like active, if what you're building is the value prop is really great platform for active traders, the active traders trade perps. That's just the reality. Like, because of it's just more efficient, right? Like when you use leverage, if you have a view on the market and you're a short-term trader, it's just much more efficient to do so with leverage than not. And so like spot markets also have a lot of uses, more for just like doing swaps, like kind of one-off things like, oh, I want to move some assets from this book to that book, whatever, right? Like, but if you're an active trader, like there's not a lot of active traders who would say, hey, like I'm a day trader and I trade in Uniswap, right? That's not really a thing. Like we've interviewed thousands of traders that unicorn doesn't exist. Like it's like people who are active traders, they're trading perps. And so now, of course, once you have that, because you have to start with something that is like the thing customers want the most, and then you add other parts to it. So we're adding spot in a couple of weeks, in fact. And then we're going to add universal cross margin, and then we're going to add the ZKVM sidecar. And that's kind of the roadmap.
I mean, it does seem like you're right. Like trading in general is a crypto's killer use case, but then perps specifically a highly efficient form of trading. So on L2 actually, Lighter is number 6 in terms of total value lock, the 6th largest L2 already, which is pretty impressive. 10 to 15 days into mainnet. Also, the number 1, layer 2 app chain, let's call it, because you're focused just on perps itself. Right. I do have a question here. So there's been a lot of discussion around, say, why Hyperliquid did an L1 rather than an L2, or even why Tempo from Stripe or Arc from Circle or Plasma from, kind of invested by Tether, why they're doing their own layer 1s. And a lot of the answer comes down to like a technical type of answer. I'm not sure if this is the real read between the lines answer or if this is correct, but a lot of them say, well, Ethereum is just like not performant enough. In particular, L2s are not performant enough. So I want to ask you the performance question. So it sounds like you spent a lot of time trying to, make sure that Lighter had the performance necessary for high volume perps trading. So where are you on that? What is the, TPS throughput of Lighter today? Right. What do you expect it to be? How scalable really is your architecture? Or are there some limits to it and trade-offs?
Well, let me talk about Lighter first, and then I can talk about some of the other projects you mentioned and kind of the bigger picture of the industry, right? So with Lighter, right, like our goal was always to build, kind of the best decentralized trading experience, in that you can have, which means low latency, low cost, verifiable matching, verifiable liquidations, and security, right? And the security part we talked about, right? The escape hatch kind of being on top of Ethereum. The really nice thing about being Ethereum L2, and Vitalik talks about this all the time, right? Is like the more secure the L1, the more performant can the L2 be, right? Because when you're trading, like the L2 can be, first of all, the L2 doesn't need consensus. Since we use ZK proofs for verifiability, like anyone can generate the proof. And it doesn't matter if the proof was like, because the proof has to be correct and the rules for its validity are enshrined in the, like, these ZK snark circuits that are public. And so, like, if the proof, like if our sequencer generates the proof and it's wrong, then that's not accepted by Ethereum, or someone else can generate a proof too. So there's no need to wait. So basically what I'm saying is, like, even if there was a decentralized sequencer, like whoever generates the proof first goes. Like there's no need to wait for consensus. But the I guess more to the point though, the performance, essentially, like the L2 can be as performant as hardware can get. Like there's no limits to the performance of the L2. The only limits are just economic, right? Like, because you have to pay, someone has to pay to run those machines, and both the machines there's like, it's like, think about like a race car that goes around the track, and then there's like a big car that follows it to clean up. But like, and you kind of have to pay for the race car is just actually doing the matching and like responding to requests within milliseconds and all that. And then there's like another like bigger car that like generates proofs that what the race car did is correct. So you need to pay for the performance of both of those. So now the latency part, I think even right now, Later has the best latency in the market. Like if you try it out, like, especially if you're, it is a centralized sequencer, but that sequencer is co-located close to where our customers are. And like, it's pretty fast. It's like, you can feel, it's sub 100 millisecond latency. Like it's noticeable. TPS, again, is a matter of hardware, and it's a matter of costs. Like, I think the, like, could Later run at 1 million TPS right now? Yeah, like we could if we were okay spending 10x on infra that we do right now. Now we don't want to do, because like right now there's not a customer demand for that. If there was, then the cost structure should be adjusted. Like we've thought about, like if someone wants to do really high, like the kind of high frequency that's never happened on chain before, right? If someone wants to do like ultra high frequency, right, like 1 million TPS, then they should pay for that TPS directly. And we haven't, that's not a, right now we have the free tier and the premium tier. There's no like pay for your own TPS ultra HFT tier yet, but that's something we're thinking about, right? So, and again,
what is the current kind of TPS?
Well, the current TPS, yeah, I mean, it's like around, 5,000 or so is like normal. Like, and during these crazy environments, it spiked. I mean, and I think, and for some blocks, it was like in the hundreds of thousands. It's
okay. So if you're getting to 5,000 already, and you can scale to 1 million, I think for a lot of Bankless listeners, they're asking, okay, like, why are other layer 2s different? Because while there's no sort of theoretical limit to the scalability of something like Base or Arbitrum, there's a practical limitation to it. And there, Jesse from Base is working on to get to gigagas levels of, block-based throughput. Does that imply something different about your architecture versus some of the other more general purpose L2s?
Our circuits are like, we did not build a ZKVM, right? We built custom circuits to run an exchange, and that's why Later we'll also have a ZKVM sidecar for applications whose performance needs are a bit less. They can kind of be run in a smart contract that translates into circuits and then share sequencer. To your point about the L2 beat, like we are an app chain right now, but I guess what you're getting at though, I mean, our design is, I think, very good optimization wise, but the other part is the economics, right? Like maybe some of those other L2s, if they're used for stuff like payments, like they don't have, Citadel or Jump or Jane Street who want to use them for high frequency trading, who would pay for that TPS, right? So like, I think that's part of it too. So it's not just like, I mean, we are very proud of our engineering, but I think also like this trading use case there's just more economics to be brought to bear for it in the first place.
Okay, so then this gets to the second piece of my question, which is like, well, how come all of these other platforms are opting for layer 1s and citing performance reasons for that? Do you buy it, or is there another motivator here?
Those guys, they should talk to teams like Succinct Labs, right? and build a performant L2 on top of Ethereum. You know, I don't know exactly what made into it. Like maybe, like I don't know, like maybe they made a technical choice 2 years ago that's not relevant today or something. I'm guessing the stuff that's come out recently, it wasn't built yesterday, right? Like I'm guessing they were building it over time, and a year or two ago, like the building blocks on Ethereum weren't as advanced, and maybe they didn't want it. Like I don't know, if putting myself in their shoes, you start building in 2023, and all you have to go by is that, you know, Vitalik's vision, but the stuff hasn't been built out yet. And you're thinking, okay, it may take 2 years, but what if it takes 5? Do I want to risk my business on that, or do I just want to build on L1?
Well, can
I don't know.
I
That's
put out
probably the thinking that went into it, but I don't know.
another explanation I've had, which is just like, it's not a technical explanation, but I'm wondering, so Lighter does not have a token right now. Maybe it will at some point in the future. There does seem to be something that I've called before the L1 premium, which is for whatever reason, if your token is an L1 token versus an L2, in these current market conditions, there's some sort of premium associated with that L1 token. Maybe it's just the simple logic of, well, if it's an L1, then we can take Ethereum's market cap, which is like, you know, $500 billion. We could be a small sliver of that market cap versus taking an L2 market cap. So it's possible that the explanation could be it's higher ROI. You have the option and you have the L1 premium if you do an L1 rather than an L2. And that could be some of the explanatory reason why. I don't know if that's cope or if like there's something I'm missing here.
That's not really based, like I'm a first principles thinker, right? As I think you guys are too. Like to me, that's not really based on any that narrative probably is a thing, but it may be, I don't know, like maybe some famous VC said it one time and everyone was like, oh yeah. Like, it's like, I don't think that's based on anything, right? If you think about how other things work, like who, like, you know, I don't know if Ethereum is like HTTP, like, or whatever, like, you know, or like Cisco, you know, there's the value in their other applications on top of that, like Google and Facebook, like they accrue a lot of value too. It's not like, you know, Facebook built their own version of HTTP. You know, I just don't think that really, like, I think you have to look at each application from first principles, like who are the customers, who, you know, what are the risks, like where does value accrue long term and stuff like that, and not just like a VC meme.
From a first principles perspective, so you've talked about all the benefits of being a layer 2, verifiability, security. You have to maintain a consensus layer. You don't have to inflate your token in order to pay for validators. All of these things, I imagine, factor into it. Are there any downsides though? Do you lose any sovereignty being an L2? Is it maybe harder from a technical perspective? Are there liquid? Yeah.
I certainly don't want to belittle kind of the technical efforts of other teams. So, you know, but like maybe some of the projects you mentioned, the reason they didn't follow the kind of path we did is like, they just didn't have the in-house expertise to do it. And that's why I mentioned teams like Succinct Labs and others like Axiom that are helping developers kind of do like build efficient L2s on Ethereum using ZK. But the sovereignty thing, yeah, I mean, I think that's probably, I mean, of all the arguments I've heard, there's probably something to that, right? Like being relying on Ethereum. I mean, I think if one of the risks is like, well, what if Ethereum itself becomes corrupt? Like that is a risk. And if that's the risk you're solving for, you know, that could be a reason to make a different decision, right? I mean, I think that is real. I mean, but I think, yeah, like keeping the technical stack easier and more under your control is a reason too, right? Like we're definitely like, are we somewhat at the mercy of if Ethereum stuff happening on Ethereum was like 2 years behind, would we be where we are today? Like probably not, right? So there are things like that, but you know, we're very aligned with the Ethereum community, and you know, like I think that's certainly a bet we've taken, and we feel good about it.
When you say harder, it's interesting, right? Because there's like, it's harder to do an L2 from an engineering perspective. There might be lots of reasons why. It also seems very hard to like bootstrap your own validator set and work on like decentralizing that and making that kind of the consensus layer. Like that's a whole nother moving part that L2s don't actually have to contend with.
I mean, is it though? Like, I mean, I think there are frameworks to do it, like Cosmos. Like it's not like they're not also like.
That's been done many more times, you're saying? Like,
I mean, it's not like no one's, you know, like what we've done has never been done before. I guess the closest was DYDX v3, but even they did it in partnership with Starkware, not alone.
I get it.
I mean, none of this stuff is easy, right, by any means. Like, but in terms of the degrees of how hard it is, like, I think like what we've done is kind of right at the top.
Introducing KGen, aka Verify, the world's largest verified distribution protocol, or VDP. If you're trying to grow a real protocol or app, you need real users doing real actions. If it's not Verify, it's just noise. At the core of Verify is Poggy, KGen's identity and reputation framework. It helps you reach humans, not bots, and proves what your users actually did, so your budget goes to the right people. With Verify, you can run verified user acquisition with confidence, keeping people coming back with retention tools like loyalty rewards, quests and achievements, and even power AI training and evaluation using trusted, verified user groups, ensuring your models learn from clean data. And when it's time to reward your community, there's the K-Store, a global rewards marketplace where users can redeem perks that connect directly back to your app. Put simply, when growth is built on real users, you grow faster, and that's exactly what Verify delivers. If you're building in Web3, AI, or gaming, request a demo to grow your protocol at www.kgen.io/demo. That's www.kgen.io/demo. BitDigital, ticker BTBT, is a publicly traded ETH treasury company that combines the two biggest metas of our time, Ethereum and AI compute. BitDigital believes that ETH will power finance and AI compute will power everything. BitDigital gives you direct exposure to both. BitDigital holds more than 150,000 ETH with institutional grade staking and validator operations. On top of that, the company owns roughly 73% of White Fiber, an AI infrastructure business that runs high-performance GPU data centers. That adds a meaningful exposure to the growth of AI compute with over 27 million shares. This is an ETH treasury backed by real operations, designed to capture staking yield today while positioning for the future of intelligent computing tomorrow. The ticker is BTBT. This ad is not financial advice. Do your own research, learn more about BitDigital, and try their MNAV calculator at bit-digital.com. That's bit-digital.com. Bankless is being compensated by BitDigital for this ad. You can find out more information by clicking the link in the show notes. Maybe we can place ourselves in Lighter's roadmap. So Mainnet launched 14 days ago. Biggest liquidation event ever in crypto, 10 days later. But that wasn't part of your roadmap. That was an external force. What happens next? What are you guys working on next in terms of your roadmap? What's the grand plan and where are we?
Right. Yeah, I think I quickly talked through this in an earlier answer, but let me expand on that a bit, right? So, Spot we were planning Spot by kind of end of this month. The recent events might have set us back 2 or 3 days, but still like end of October, maybe first week of November, still scheduled for Spot. After that, if you think about kind of core infrastructure, then there's like things like the ZKVM sidecar. There is the idea of universal cross margin, right? Where any asset
Just real quick, Vlad, the sidecar, are you referring to basically, besides just being a perps app chain, having more general purpose block space and more of kind of a platform type play?
Yes.
On top of later?
Yeah. So you could write, because like right now, let's say someone like an Aave wanted to, first of all, we already can integrate with the stuff that happens on the L1 on Ethereum already. But let's say someone like an Aave wanted to or whoever wanted to write an application that runs directly on the L2, like they would have to be writing ZK circuits right now, right? Or that's right. But with stuff with a ZKVM sidecar, they can actually just take their existing smart contracts. They can run in the sidecar, but that shares the sequencer with the perps exchange. So then you can kind of those assets can be used as collateral or used for liquidations, so on. So that's the ZKVM sidecar thing, and then there's the universal cross margin, which is pretty cool, right? Like imagine that, like all these people who hold ETH, like imagine you can use your ETH as collateral when you trade. Now, of course, like you think about what just happened, like liquidations, like you'd have to be pretty conservative. Like maybe the leverage you take on, if you do that, isn't 50x, maybe it's 10x, but it's still better to have some version of that than not, especially if, instead of having to like force people to use USDC as collateral. And then, beyond that, just on the market side, right? Like different types of markets, pre-launch markets, real world assets, options, like all of that is like stuff for the next few quarters.
So you're looking to become kind of just a financial super app, super platform where any financial instrument can be turned into a ZK circuit and added to the platform?
That's correct.
Yeah. Wow. Has it always been that ambitious?
Yeah, I mean, it's always been, like I said, markets, we when we started, it's like, why are all these digital assets traded in ways that don't actually use the underlying tech? And let's build, a way to trade digital assets that fully leverages kind of decentralization, verifiability, security. And the scope of what digital assets means has grown a lot while we were building also, right? Like, for example, real world assets weren't really on our roadmap in the beginning, but now with kind of new administration, new policies, now they are, right? Or things like, like prediction markets maybe as well, or things like options. So all of that, a lot of that is driven more by customer demand, though, right? Like we're not just like building stuff in the lab and like seeing what sticks. Like we're pretty transparent about it. Like we ask polls like, okay, what should we build next? And the one that came up was like pre-launch markets. So we built pre-launch markets.
So the Perp DEX landscape has this huge Hyperliquid colored glasses around the whole concept, largely because of just the absolute success of the launch of the Hyperliquid token. No investors, no VCs, a very generous share given to the community. And then the token just ripped afterwards, did a 10x. And now I don't think you can be like a Perp DEX in the space and not really have that series of events kind of just in the back of your head. Lighter has a points program. Presumably points turns into a later lighter token. Any details? How do I get points? When will the token drop? Any sort of details about this
well,
aspect
how do you get
of
points? That's an easy one because we're going to be publishing. So as season 2 starts, we're going to be publishing the formula for how points are generated this week.
Why has it been a secret so far?
Well, so for season 1, the formula used in season 1 was a secret. The formula for season 2 will be much more transparent. Why the secret? Because, we didn't have systems in place to, at that point, to prevent bad actors from gaming the system, right? So also, I think there's something interesting when it's like new, people experiment. Like if they don't know what it is and they try different forms of trading, you kind of get like a better stress test for your product.
People are poking around in the nooks and crannies of the protocol. Right,
exactly. Yeah. But now we know, we have like 250,000 traders, right? So we know what kind of stuff they're going to do. Like it's unlikely that a trader will come at this point and discover a whole new way to use, to use Lighter. So like, I think we can be a lot more transparent now. And the argument for the transparency is that especially like institutions, market makers and HFT shops, like they have quant teams, like run strategies. Like for them, it's very helpful when they can actually say, okay, like my when I run the strategy and then like this is how many points I'm going to get for the strategy, and like that adjusts their models, right? And that's good because they can, for example, provide more liquidity if they know they're going to get points. Again, like maybe if they had known that, they would have stayed in more on the 10th, and we would have had even more liquidity than just LLP. But your question about like, we're thinking about kind of year end as kind of to wrap up season 2, and I think you can expect kind of something to happen around that time, but we'll kind of make announcements as we get closer. And I think your other point was about like, the market, market comps to other projects, right? I mean, again, it's like, to me, this is all about blocking and tackling. Like you have to treat the customer right. You have to have reasonable policies, right? To be transparent about communication. Like this whole thing about like VCs, well, we have some very helpful partners on the capital side, but for example, Founders Fund is their whole ethos is that they are there to help when you need it. Otherwise they get out of the way. And so it's like the founder kind of has, the founding team, makes kind of the core decisions, right? And for us, we of course get input from our customers when we make those core decisions. So it really depends. Like, I don't know, maybe people have been burned with some particular VC-backed projects before, so this whole narrative appears. But it's like, from our perspective, it's no different than, if someone on a team won the lottery when the Powerball had $1 billion to inject into the project, it would be no different than the VC partners we have. Actually, it's even better because they can help when we need them.
Vlad, you guys premiered on L2 Beat, which is sort of a stakeholder that looks at the property rights assurances of all the L2s out there. And you got 4 out of 5 Pi slots green, which is pretty impressive debut. Still a stage 0. What's the plan to get to stage 1, stage 2? Is that a priority for you?
Yeah. I mean, that's kind of for the team that's working on the core infrastructure, the cryptography side. Like, L2 Beat is, one of their core metrics, one of their core KPIs. So I think we should be all green pretty soon, but I guess you'll see it when it happens.
Very good. Vlad, thank you so much for joining us today. This has been fantastic.
Thank you, guys.
Appreciate it.
Yeah, appreciate the questions.
For everybody out there, none of this has been financial advice. Of course, perps are risky, so is the rest of crypto. You could lose what you put in, but we are headed west. This is the frontier. It's not for everyone, but we're glad you're with us on the bankless journey. Thanks a lot.